what's up, friends? Welcome back to a new episode of the Kevirsyle Network podcast. I am your boy, Kevin Davis, author, comic creator, entrepreneur, and so many other hats. But today's guest, welcome to the show, Miss J.L. Lawrence. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, thank you for coming on. And I'm like, it's first off for new audience members just getting to know you. Can you tell us a bit about your background and like what you do?
All right. My main thing is fantasy author, but I took a long road to get here. I also teach high school and college, and then
Oof, Jesus,
started
both of
started to write and enjoyed it. It was kind of one of those things where in high school it was kind of like a therapy, so to speak. And
them?
I would just write and doodle and things like that. And then um, years and years later, I started realizing that there was kind of a theme in all of it and tried my hand at writing it. Had some friends read it and they were like, you know what, this is actually pretty good. And so I got with editors and started to figure things out. And it just kind of led me down the path of becoming an author and just kind of added an extra thing in my wheelhouse.
Wow, and you teach high school and college. How do you balance that? Because that's a lot of energy, if I'm being honest.
Some days it gets balanced well, some probably not. Some I feel like I probably should sleep more than I should. But
I feel that so much. Oh my
yeah,
God,
I
yes.
mean, it's just some days it feels like I go all day from morning to night and
Mm,
trying to fit stuff in. And, then you throw Comic Cons on weekends or
mm.
downtime, and you've got to say, oh no, no downtime from this because now I switched to this. So it's been a little bit of a balancing act, and sometimes just having to be patient with myself and knowing there's some deadlines that just might have to get pushed back.
Yeah, especially you have to balance all of that from being a teacher to being an author, and then you have to promote yourself as an author too,
Yeah.
with multiple events and everything. First off, did you know you wanted to become an author first, or was it you want to become a teacher first, or like which one came first before you decided to do both?
Honestly, neither. Um,
Oh wow.
yeah, I went to school getting my bachelor's, and I love to travel, and so I got my bachelor's in international business and economics, and so I was planning to be corporate, and kind of my focus was analyzing environments and restructuring organizations. That was going to be my thing. And right a few months after I graduated in college and, lining up the interviews, everything you do when you finally have that degree, that is when the Twin Towers got struck. And
Oh
so,
my
um,
God.
yeah, so my perspective, especially on an international playing field, changed
Yeah.
really quickly. And at that point in time, that's the first time we had ever experienced something like that in our country. And we didn't know how long there would be hiring freezes or, you know,
Right.
trouble with travel or all of those things that I thought were going to be so easy to do. And so I ended up redirecting and decided to go to college for my master's in business. And while I was there at the meeting, they had a graduate assistantship. So if I was willing to do the master's of business and add education, I could be a graduate assistant and get my tuition for free. So I was like, sign me up. And
Wow.
so from there, it just kind of changed my trajectory. I ended up having a early contract before I even graduated with my master's and with Metro Nashville Schools. And I just kind of went in that direction. And I think for a while in the back of my head, it was probably like, I'll do this till I feel like everything is good and solid and safe again. And, and then maybe go back. But it just never really happened. Life happens. I got married and then started a family, and I enjoyed the classroom. I enjoyed how it changes every day and kind of keeps you on your toes. And it allowed me to, have a better schedule with my kids versus a corporate schedule. So then that just ended up changing my trajectory. And here I am about to meet my next set of students next week or Monday, actually,
Ooh.
24th
Wow.
year.
24 years. That
Yep.
is amazing. And I would, as a teacher, I'm like you. I know you touch a lot of lives at teaching for so long. Do you like sometimes get like it like what's get surprises from like your past students coming back to you, like telling them like updates about their lives?
Oh yeah, and actually Facebook makes that a little bit easier now because I've been able to connect with some of those students, see what they're doing. You know, every once in a while something will pop up and they'll like send me a memory and
Oh
uh,
my God.
things like that. I have uh, my daughter, my oldest daughter, now works at an after school program, and she was working one day, and a lady walked in and introduced herself and said hi, and she was like, "I was your mom's student."
Oh my God.
So it's
Wow.
just
Wow.
it's funny how the lives intersect. Some, I've kept up with a lot over the years, and or some just kind of in passing here and there. I'll see something pop up or hear it from someone else, but yeah, it's good to see where some of them kind of ended up.
Yeah, cause I actually kept up with some of my teachers from high school. And they kept up with me because I'm on Facebook. I make random posts and I see like some of my teachers comment, say congratulations. I'm like, "Oh, I forgot we're friends on here." I was like, holy smokes, we're actually still. I'm like, we actually still friends on here. And first off, that's freaking amazing. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Because my sister is in her 10th year teaching, and I know like I've seen like so many things, some of the teacher shortages was happening, and I was like, dude, we need some good freaking teachers in these classrooms because teachers are what makes us what we are today, if I'm being honest.
That's very true, and
And
it's a tough
it,
role sometimes.
oh, Jesus Christ, right? And I legit when I a couple months back, my sister and I went out to eat like soulfish, like where our fish place is. And I hear my name called when we sat down. I was like, who's calling me? And I turn around. It was my ninth grade English teacher. And I
Yep.
was like, oh my God, hi. I haven't seen her in years. And I told her, I was like, I have my own business now. I have my own publishing business now, and I catching up with her and like seeing what she's doing. And she's like, and it was really good to see her because I haven't seen her since basically ninth grade.
Yep.
And I'm just like, good Lord, has it really been that freaking long? Wow. And
Time flies.
teachers are a huge impact on society. And I'm just like, dude, teachers. I'm like, there wouldn't be doctors without teachers. First of all, I'm like, I wouldn't even be a business person without my teachers. Learning from them. I was like, for a long time, I didn't know what the heck I want to do with my life. And but just listening to my teachers and going on a relationship with my teachers, they helped me figure out what I want to do with my life, and they pushed me out of my comfort zone. So
Yep.
I'm like, so huge respect and sending so much love to you as a teacher
Thank you.
because that is a lot of work, and you do high school and college.
Mhm.
That's oof, Jesus Christ, that is a whole different thing. Because my sister teaches elementary school, and she visits me every day about the story, so I can't even
Yeah.
imagine what you go through dealing with these these two type of energies going back and forth. So and
Yeah.
yes, my
They keep us
friend
on your
Pops,
toes.
that he loves the dedication. I love that too, because not everyone can do that. If you're gonna be honest about it.
Yep.
Um, sorry, a random tangent. This happens all the time.
Oh,
Well, I want to get back to the art. You being an author, or the like specific authors like you kind of like got inspiration from, like that push you to like want to write your own stories.
I think it was probably by reading, because I've read a variety my whole life. I was always a big reader. Kind of
Yeah.
like you said, I've read several series, always enjoyed them. But I think it was probably kind of in college and maybe leaving college where I was reading some of Sherilyn Kenyon and Christine Feehan and um, some of Nora Roberts on the ones that she does on the fantasy side
Ah,
and
nice.
and some others that it really just kind of sparked, and I was like, this is kind of things that I've had, similar things that I've had in my head, and then I'd get into like Lord of the Rings or some of the others with the world building and
Yes.
that,
Oh,
and just realize that I could hear the echoes of some of my own creations in a lot of those different places, and it's kind of what inspired me to kind of look and notice the theme that they kind of all had and start to put together my first series.
wow. Yeah. I was a big reader. Well, not at first, but as I grew older, I became a big reader. Because I read like the Percy Jackson's book series. I didn't read the Harry Potter, but I saw the movies. I got to like the Goosebumps book series because I'm a huge horror fan as well, and like Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, Narnia. I think it was Mortal Instruments, but that was my sister's books. But I was curious about them, and some other series I can't name off the top of my head because that was a lot of series I read.
Yeah,
But
same
that's the
here.
top one, like Hunger Games, like the ones I actually do remember, like actually I could say because that's the only ones I can remember off the top of my head.
Yeah,
Because I also watched the movie, so that's also why I remember them.
yeah. I read those.
um, so yeah, right. And then I saw the Stephen King movies, but his books are so thick. I haven't said ready to read them just yet.
I my husband was a fan of or is a fan of Stephen King and has read some of the books, and I attempted to read one, and that's just horror's not my thing.
That's
I can watch
understandable.
almost anything and read almost anything, not horror.
That's understandable. Like especially with the It book, that is
Mhm.
thousand some pages, and I'm just like the book is way worse than the movies because it has a lot more gruesome detail.
Yes,
So
it does.
I will say that. But speaking of your series, you have a Mystic series.
Hmm.
Tell us a bit about your series because I haven't got the book yet, but I read the bio and like read the information about it.
Hmm.
What? Tell us a bit about it because I am so excited about it. So give us a breakdown
So
about
the Mystic series was, I guess, still kind of my flagship series.
it.
It is. It took a long time to write and create, but it started off as a trilogy, and it is epic fantasy. So you've got your FBI agent who starts off who chases like the bad serial killers of the world, and you
Oh
find out
snap!
that she does this by she has these special gifts, and she tries to keep them hidden and tries to be so normal because she wants to fit in with what she thinks is that normal world. And
Mm,
so the book starts off where she's in the middle of this hunt for a serial killer, and she realizes that there just can't be quite human. Like there's something off. And so it forces her to face the facts that there's a lot more to the world than she wants to admit. And
mm,
so then you have the other characters come into play that kind of catapult her into begrudgingly realizing that she is destined to become the mystic. And so that first book
ah,
is really about her becoming the mystic. Because she was born in the human realm, of course, she's being chased by demons all the way to get to this place where she can
oh Lord.
transition. And so she's on the run, trying to accept that she's got to become this mystic thing and give up humanity. And it's all this is kind of hitting her at once, and so it's really kind of her journey. And then on the other hand, you've got her guardian who has been searching for her for over 20 years. He's cranky, and
Oh boy.
you
That
know
cranky.
he's
Oh man.
he has so he's kind of resentful, and because he's been searching for her, and of course when he finally finds her, he's like, thank goodness I have found the mystic, we are saved. And she's like, I don't want to be the mystic, I'm not going with you. So, so
Oh yeah.
it's kind of that both accepting of
Mm,
the other, and then being on the run. And then I introduce a lot of my different types of characters. Like in my world, my good version, my good vampires are called gliders. I've got the
interesting.
difference between like sorcerers or wizards. Um, my different power structures work a little different, where some are nature based or some are more spell and potion based, depending
Yeah.
on what their specialties are. And so that first one is just about realizing all that's out there, but most of it takes place in the human world. And
Mm,
then as she transitions into the meadows, which is the magical realm, and that's where she has to eventually wind up in order to become the mystic. And so in
wow.
the second book, it's more about her recruiting her supernatural army. So
Holy
she's
smokes.
finally kind of sucked it up and accepted who she's meant to be. But then she realizes that while they were so busy searching for her, a lot of the relations with all these different worlds that she needs their support to win this big battle against evil, they don't really support her much or support the council much anymore. So it's about her
Wow.
going and meeting these worlds and proving herself, because she was born a human. So a lot of them doubt who she is. And so it's about her having to prove herself, recruit the army that she's going to need in order to have any chance to to win, because the premise is she the mystic leads up to the rising. And so in the rising you have one chosen for evil, one chosen for good, and they're going to battle it out. But there's, of course, they try to weaken each other along the way, so it's this massive battle of good versus evil, with the two trying to kind of meet in the middle and have the ultimate.
Right.
And so in that second book, it's really
Wow.
about recruiting her army. And then in the final book, it gets a little bit more smaller scale, back to your core set of characters, where she has to actually go on her quest for power. Because if she doesn't gain enough power and gain enough experience and enough tools, there's no way she can stand up and 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 win the fight. So the third one is kind of a blend of still recruiting people for her army, but also realizing she doesn't have enough power to win yet. And so
And
it's about her going through that, and of course ending with the big battle.
and all three books are actually out now.
Yes, those were my original three. So they've been out for
Wow.
a little bit.
Wow. Where can we actually buy these books? I actually want to buy all three now
Yeah.
already. But then where can we actually purchase your books?
You can go to jumpmaster.com. They're on Amazon.
Nice.
You can also email me, and you have my email, so you can post it. My website, I'm transitioning it right now. So usually you could go
Okay.
to my website, but right now we're switching it from Wix to a Squarespace. So
Smart.
it's down for just a little while. So hopefully that'll be up in a couple weeks. But you can still email me, and so if you wanted signed copies, you can email me. I can send you a Square link, and then I can mail them to you, and so you could have signed copies.
Heck
But
yeah.
you can
I
order
like
them
that.
from any of those.
I love Squarespace. I mean, random tangent. I love Squarespace over Wix because it's way easier to navigate. Um,
Learning that.
right. Um, is which character from your series like you think was like most challenging for you to write?
um, I don't know. I guess from two perspectives. One was the heroine, Kate, because hers had to be such a story of change. Like her, there had to be so much character development in her from the beginning. You know, a human trying to deny everything magic, to the end where she's got to be the ultimate magic and face off against the ultimate evil, and showing that transition and her acceptance along the way, and still those doubts that plague. That was probably the hardest one, to get all those arcs in there and really show her change over time, to where I mean, she's almost a different person by the end of the book, because she has finally accepted her destiny and is ready to, face those final challenges. But it takes her, a long time, a lot of pain, a lot of, other bad things that happen along the way, that kind of teach her and mold her, and until she gets to that final place.
And what can readers expect from your world without giving away too many spoilers?
Mostly it's a lot of action adventure. There is a little bit of romance in the original three, just
Ah,
because with some of the characters, and because one of the big driving forces in the series is the bond between the Guardian and the Mystic, and how it can amplify power. So there is a little bit of that in there, but it's really more action adventure. And really, it's just about meeting all the different worlds, all the different characters. I have underwater worlds. Like I said, my version of
ah,
vampires.
yes,
I have the fairy
yeah.
realm. And then by the third book, you also meet where the dragons are. And so
Ah,
by the end, I bring in that world of dragons that I play on in some of my newer series. But that's where they're first introduced, is in that third book.
oh my God, I am geeking out right now because that's all I love.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm writing my stories. Yes, I write horror, but I write fantasy as well. And so I have like my own world building I'm crafting out of my brain right now. And I got into writing because one, I love storytelling and I have a huge imagination I want to share with people. and just getting it out of my head, and it's become like therapy to me with writing, especially like dealing with a hard day. I was like, I just don't want to do anything, and I don't want to watch TV. I don't want to watch media. I just want to get into something more productive that's not work. I was like, even though I'm writing comics and writing books, but I don't consider that work because that's my passion,
Yep.
and I just love doing it. And I got to when I got into comics and storytelling because one, I got tired of Hollywood with these rehashes and everything. And I was like, I want to bring back originality for God's sake, because
Yeah.
I'm tired of seeing the same old titles getting rehashed every 5 minutes. And I was like, I feel like Hollywood is just so in their old ways. They think that everyone just wants the same thing over and over again. I was like, no, we want something new and original. I'm like, good Lord. And I was like, and I come from a family of entrepreneurs, basically, and my mother's a writer, so I found out writing is actually in my blood.
Yeah. Nice.
And I was like, dude, it might take me a while to build this, but I'd rather build something original than waiting for somebody to do something I want to see. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't care how long it takes. It's not going to stop me from telling my own stories.
Yeah.
And I freaking love storytelling. And hey, what's up, Grey Wolf? And you have this beautiful fantasy world. It's really inspiring me now with my with my stories, because I have dragons, I have griffins, I have demons, I have angels, I have Nephilims. Because like I have like I and there's like times I mix different genres together to make my own thing.
Oh yeah.
And like for example, I can take an Adam Sandler movie and a random horror movie. I can take the two different concepts, but I can combine and make my own thing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, it's not that hard to be creative and just be original. You can take inspiration from a billboard and make a whole. So I've done it multiple times.
Yep.
You can take it from a copy machine randomly. I've done it too. and and when you're like writing these characters, do you have like a favorite character that like you really just loved writing about when you was creating the series?
Honestly, I think Kate was probably always my favorite because she was the one that I kind of envisioned from the beginning. You know, she was kind of the one that I foresaw the journey for and that I just kind of followed all the way through. And over time, I really liked, some of the other characters that I built in, but she was just kind of always the one that was the center of that
Nice.
world. And actually, when I finished the original three, my daughter, my oldest daughter, who was younger at the time, had asked me, she was like, well, she was a reader, and she was like, well, why didn't you write something I could read? And because it is adult. And so I thought about that, and I took Kate and actually gave her a backstory. And
Ah.
so the prequel series called Path to Destiny, that is actually a any age reader, but it follows Kate throughout high school, and you kind of can follow her to see how she ended up being a FBI agent that really kind of just craved that normal life. A lot of it has to do with those high school adventures that kind of shaped what she was doing. And so I was able to put in new characters, a new environment, more magical realism because it all took place, in the regular world. And I basically made her a magical Nancy Drew. And
Oh, I love that. Oh my God.
so they were,
And I love Nancy Drew as well, so
yeah.
I know I
So
understand the reference.
I had magical crime fighting sleuths.
Oh
Um,
my God, yes.
So it
Nice.
just, I was able to bring in the new characters, and they ended up being really strong characters. In fact, they're kind of what inspired the series that I'm working on now because a lot of people, because they were only in high school, because I wrote the Mystic first, so their characters had to, move on. Um, but now in the newest series that I'm writing called the Shadow series, their characters are coming back. So
Oh,
they'll
snap.
finally get their ending. So my most
Wow.
recent series called The Shadows is actually 15 years later from the Mystic.
Mm.
So
Wow, massive time jump.
yeah,
Wow.
so this latest series will actually close out the Mystic world.
Wow.
So
Huh.
I've got two novellas, prequels that came out
Mm.
right before Shadowed Redemption, and they both were award winning. A lot of people enjoy them. And then I released Shadowed Redemption. So it's out, and I'm working on the second one now, but it will be a trilogy. And it will close out all those characters, show where the characters from 15 years ago in the world ended up. And you also get to see another side of Kate again, because now,
Uh,
she's been the mystic for 15 years. She's a mom. You know, she's she's now been responsible for realms for all this time. And so you
mm,
kind of see the
nice.
impact on her, and how she kind of has to embrace again who she's meant to be, to face off against another, evil, and help everyone else get to where they need to be. She's now got to be this,
Beautiful.
and in a different perspective, and realizing what all that involves, even possibly her children having to fight for their own lives. So it adds in a whole new dimension, and allows you to really kind of see that final piece of character growth that is kind of alluded to at the end of the Mystic, but now you actually get to see it. And so, um, that's what I'm working on now, is that series to kind of close out that world.
Wow. And do you like approach your writing your fantasy differently when you're creating like a magic versus creature type of story, like especially with dragons? Or do they kind of just
Sometimes
flow together?
sometimes it works a little differently. The Shadow series has taken me a little bit longer than I would like to get going, because I've kind of had a couple of different visions. Like how I envisioned it when I finished writing The Mystic is
Yeah.
not where it ended up. Um,
Yeah.
So my original plan, because in the Mystic series, I introduced the Shadow Warriors, and they're a
Ah,
cursed species because of nothing of their own fault, and trying to break the curse. And so it just kind of, it ends with alluding to the fact that there's still more work to be done there. And so that's what we're coming back to in this series, is breaking that curse. But um, instead of being just focused on that, and because I wanted to tie those characters in from her youth, it has actually turned to more, it's become the dragon prophecy. So
wow.
I've kind of tied everything into my version of dragons. And so it turns out that their curse was just a piece of this prophecy. And so the series is really about working with the dragons, uncovering the prophecy, what they have to do to, not only break the curse, but save the world from the prophecy and all that kind of stuff, and make it where dragons can re enter certain worlds that they were forced out of.
Wow. And with world building, world building takes a lot of work. You sometimes have to go back to read the previous event to
Oh,
remember why you got to a certain part in the
yeah.
next chapter.
Especially with this Shadow series, because there was such a break in between. I had to go back and read the original trilogy, and I even had to, I made notes. I was like, this book, this page, I might need to know this, and this is why. And I had to go through and actually make notes, because little things that I had mentioned about the Shadow Warriors, about where their tattoo was located, or something about how their world looked, or something about the castle when she visited once, little things like that you don't want to mess up on. So I had to go back and look at some of that, and then when I decided to tie in the characters from the past, I had to go back and read those books, because I had kind of thought that was closed out, but it
Yeah.
turns out that I've brought it back. So then I've had to go back recently and reread those, so that I can make sure I'm telling their story and get them back on track. And so it's been it's been interesting. I don't know. I'm kind of it's kind of bittersweet. I'm ready to close out the world, um, but it'll also be sad when I finally write the end on that one. It will be sad to know that universe, those stories have kind of been closed out.
Man, yeah, that's kind of how it is with my stories. Because when I write like my comic scripts,
Hmm.
and I was like, I'm like, I know where I'm going to end it off, but I was like, but when I get there, am I going to be sad about it? I want to do more. I was like, but I don't want to do like what people say, milk the franchise. I was like, I don't want to do too much, but I'm just like, I'm like, what there will be spin-offs of characters in the universe, so I can expand it, but this certain arc is over.
Now, you had
Uh,
mentioned Percy Jackson and Harry Potter and liking those.
mm,
And one of my other projects that I'm working on is called the Dragon Chronicles. And so that one is more
nice.
of a Percy Jackson Harry Potter. Like the girl starts out at 13, you age with her, it's quest,
Yeah.
and it's all about her trying to become the next Dragon Master. And
Holy smokes.
so um, that's my late or my that's also another series I'm working on. I've got it with a couple of publishers right now, so I'm trying to figure out exactly how I want to get that one out there. But the first two are written, so I'll once I decide that I'll be able to kind of move with them. But that one has been a lot of fun because I got to create my own world completely. It's the world of
Yeah.
Draconia, and it's nothing. It's based on magical creatures. So each realm has a magical creature. So you've got the dragons, you've got the Pegasus, the Sphinx,
Ah,
the mermaids, and the Phoenix.
oh my God.
So
Yes.
they've got
Yes.
the different realms, and you kind of learn about how it came to be throughout. And she does get to visit the human world and some of that in the second book, and realize that there's more beyond kind of her boundaries, but it really kind of falls into some of that same pathway. But that's where I've got to have a lot of fun with the dragons, especially,
Mhm.
and show a different type of dragon, and how in this world they have they bonded with humans, and they it's a really tight bond, and how they operate together. And um so I've had a lot of fun with that series as well. And I did have Kate make a couple of appearances, just to have the little drop in and a little bit of crossover. And Maggie, my heroine in that new series, she's going to make a little drop in visit as I finish up the Shadow series. Just to,
Oh, I love those Easter eggs. I
yeah,
love it.
so just to
Oh my
kind of have a
God.
little fun with it and have that little bit of crossover and awareness. Um, but I'm looking
Yes.
forward to that series as well. And that one is, like I said, it'll younger readers up to adults, anyone that enjoys like that Harry Potter, Percy Jackson type feel to a story is
Yeah, I'm a
that.
big fan of mythologies.
Yeah.
So it really sinks
Had a
me
lot of
in.
fun getting into the creature mythologies and
Oh
some of
yeah.
that. A lot of my stuff is based on Celtic mythology.
Oh, even I'm just learning about Celtic mythology, so it's very interesting. If you could bring like one character from your books, any book, into the real world, who would it be, and do you think it would be a good idea?
I don't know. Kate would probably be too much to re-enter the real world.
Interesting. Okay.
But I recently, as I'm writing through that younger series, Maggie is the name of my heroine, and I the little time I have her in the human realm, I think she would really enjoy it. She would get to see, because Draconia has stayed a little bit more medievalish, um,
Mm,
because they don't have cell phones, they don't have some of the
right. Right.
technology. So the first thing that when she crosses over into the human world, she was like, "Why are these people talking into a box next to their face? Like, what is happening?" Um, like the first time she sees a card used to buy something, and she's like, "I don't see the value in this plastic. What is," because they still trade in different forms of currency. So um, I've had a lot of fun writing her in this world, and the realizations, um, and some of the good things too. Realizing that she's been raised as a warrior her whole life, and to be this dragon master, and but she sees kids playing. She's like, they're just running around playing games. They're not training. They're not fighting. I don't see weapons. I don't see weapons in that, and all that kind of stuff. And so, um, I think I think some of that would be a really fun character to bring into this world.
And I know you also write like holiday romances as well. And
Yes.
romance is a whole different thing than fantasy. Is that more difficult to write than a fantasy, or they're about similar or same a bit?
Actually, it turned out to be a lot easier. The whole reason,
Really?
yeah, because the
Interesting.
whole reason I actually got into that was I needed almost like a palate cleanser. Sometimes the
Mm.
worlds get so heavy and so complicated and so
Yeah.
interconnected. You know, when you're dealing with prophecy and curses, you got to plant stuff here and connect it here, and somebody
So true.
finds something
Yeah.
here. And, you know, it can just get really overwhelming. And so I decided to do my Christmas Wishes series
Hmm.
first. And, you know, it was supposed to just be a little three set novella to kind of brighten people's day, you know, around the holidays, quick reads for busy schedules, because my holidays are insane. And so it was meant to be just kind of, you know, fun. And, but they just became really popular. And then I had people, they were like, well, when's the next set coming? I was like, oh, next set.
Oh.
Let me think about that. So
Oh my
Christmas
lord.
Wishes was my first set, and the premise is it's three triplets that when they're young, they make a wish in the wishing well. And, you know, it's like things that they want for their life, you know, just to find the right person, find soulmate, whatever. And, you know, they make the wish and then they move on with life. And then, you know, like 18 years later, they each receive a mysterious gift that
Mm.
moves them toward, you know, who they're meant to be with, you know. So one is like meets, you know, a rancher in Montana. You know, the other one is an author that reconnects with, you know, a high school, old high school flame. And then the last one is the third sibling travels to Ireland to look at, she's an artist and is looking at Irish traditions to paint the different traditions of Christmas. And so, you know, she meets someone over there that kind of guides her, and then, you know, turns into their romance. And so it just went
Okay.
over really well. And so when it came time for the next one, the next series is called Christmas Gifts. And so that one follows the premise of three high school graduates that go to Italy for their senior trip, and before they leave, make a wish in the wishing well, and, you know, for different things. You know, like one is success, one is for them to all stay together, and, you know, one is to find their true love. And so 10 years later, they get invited back to Italy for a wedding. And so when they all reconnect and all end up back in Italy, they start realizing that third piece, that third wish comes true as they get kind of pulled into different mysteries in each book that leads them to who they're meant to
Wow.
be with. And so the kind of the concept is, because I always add like a fun little epilogue at the end where it's like Mr. and Mrs. Claus talking about who they're going to help next. Um, so it kind of follows that theme of Santa granting his Christmas miracles
Mm.
um, and that kind of thing. So and the books in my Christmas gift series have all won national awards. So it's
Beautiful. Heck yeah.
just been a good
Congratulations.
series. So from deep epic fantasy to holiday romance. Yeah, who knew that
Wow.
I'd do both ends of the spectrum, um, but it's actually been fun, and it's relaxing. It allows me to reset and come out of those worlds and just have something that's kind of fun and modern, and something I can kind of do a lot of lighthearted things with and not have to have the deep. You know, it
Oh
can just
yeah.
be surface
Yeah.
level, so to speak. Still fun, still a good story, but I don't have to get into all the deep prophecies or this or that. It can just have that lighthearted feel that just kind of leaves you with a smile.
Yeah, because a lot, legit, all of my stuff, I write deep mythologies and deep messages and stuff. I was like, and I want to challenge my writing and write something different to also rest my brain from thinking so much. Because I'm thinking about writing my own romance. I have the idea. I just ain't shut down to write it yet, but I have the idea about it, and I
Yep.
want to write some comedy too. Because I want to make people laugh and just have a good time. Too. Because I'm like the world is dark, and I just want to get people to read and just explore their own imagination while also experiencing mine, hoping to inspire them to explore theirs.
Yeah,
And
that's
like
that's a
bring,
lot of how I got into mine. Is I just
yeah,
did that lighthearted feel. I wanted people to be able to sit down, and that's the reason why I did them novella style. And then what I do once I
mm,
finish the three novellas, I release them in a special edition so that you have them all in one novel.
wow,
So
that is
I
beautiful.
So I have Christmas Wishes in the special edition, and then probably in the next week or so, I'll be releasing Christmas Gifts in the special edition. I have everything ready. I've just got to get it uploaded and submitted. Um, but yeah, that's the whole reason I ended up doing that is because I wanted people to be able to pick up a story, give a couple hours of their time, but then when they close that book or close that story, they just are left with a very, they're just smiling. They feel uplifted. They kind of believe in love, believe in circumstance, believe in, someone watching out for them, whether it's Santa or guardian angel. Um, because I kind of allude to the fact it could be either or. You never quite know.
Yeah.
But um, but that's kind of where I was going with that is to kind of have that feel good, more lighthearted piece of it.
All right. Well, you helped me answer my question. I'm going to pick my book back up then. So that just inspired me to actually pick that story back up and actually finish it. And
It's good
get it
for you.
started first. Get it
It
started
really
first.
is.
And
It'll be good
yeah,
for you. It gives your brain a break. I don't. It's hard to describe, but it gives your brain a break, and it almost helps you see things a little differently when you get back into your writing because
yeah,
you've just kind of had that. I don't know, more of that uplifting. I've noticed that after I started writing the Christmas, I kind of think a little bit differently when I'm writing. If characters need to kind of come together, even if I just hint at it, I do it a little differently because I'm thinking about it still from that different perspective of what actually makes a good romance.
yeah. When I read it, I'm going to send you a copy to give me your feedback on it because that's been my first time writing that. So yeah, yeah. I want to get to like the publishing part. Do you think independent publishing world sometimes encourages authors to publish too quickly, especially like crazy deadlines and stuff?
Um, independent, or do you mean independent or small publishing? Just
Uh,
like,
in general, I'll say in general. So
okay.
yeah.
Um, with self-publishing, it is it's very much author driven. It's kind of a double-edged sword. It allows you to set your own schedule so that you don't feel as stressed about deadlines, but the reality is if you can't publish and manage your own deadlines and
Mhm.
publish often enough to keep readers going,
Right.
then it can kind of cost you because you can't ever like really build momentum. So plus it can be difficult. My biggest issue with self-publishing or independent publishing is a lot of people don't realize that even though it's easy to self-publish now and to go the independent route, that doesn't mean your book is actually ready. Um, it's you do need good editors and and not your best friend that lives next door that's a good reader. You need a good editor that has actually studied what types of genres need what types of editing because it is different. And, just basic structure. And because I've found the authors that take these extra steps and then self publish are finding more success than the ones that just assume it's good enough. People will enjoy the story enough. They, they might even have a little bit of initial success, but they can't maintain it because it's just not clean enough to really keep that momentum and to get to the readers that are a little bit more discerning. And so I would really advise, it's a great method. And my Christmas books, they are all self-published. Um, and so but those are just some things. But I mean, I do have a team of editors and beta readers and cover designers and all of that that I know I'm going to have to invest in order to make them as good as they can be. And so, if you decide to go that route, it is very, very important to not overlook that. Like, it's super exciting to finish a book and you want to get it out there, but it really is worth it to take the time to really make a book that's going to seem like professional quality.
Mhm.
You'll gain a
Uh,
lot more readers and a lot more momentum if it
mhm.
seems like this was done professionally. People don't care if it's traditionally published, small published, self
True.
published, if it reads like a good, polished professional novel.
True.
and that's a
And
key aspect.
like where do you like draw the line between writing a story you personally want to tell or and writing a story what your audience wants?
It's a fine line. The first version or two of my Mystic series was definitely probably more along the lines of the story I wanted to tell. And then as I cleaned it up and found editors and, kind of worked on it over the years, I learned to find a little bit of the balance to where it's still my voice, my ideas, me bringing everything to life. But once again, adding in that professionalism, the polish, the, the, the piece of it that's going to keep multiple readers coming back. One thing I have learned since I've kind of polished it up a bit is I'm even getting people that don't usually read fantasy, but
Mhm.
because the story flows so well and it's professional and it kind of has morphed a little bit to that balance, I'm picking up people that don't even usually read fantasy. They just enjoy the story because they're getting that hint of romance that carries them through, or they're getting,
Um,
something else, maybe the mystery or looking for the traitor or whatever else
yeah,
that,
yeah.
it's picking up those other pieces that even if they're not fantasy, they'll they'll latch on because of a little bit more of that balance and um, editing to those standards.
Yeah, I think that's a good balance with storytelling because there's like certain parts people pick up on that you don't pick up on,
Yeah,
and I think that's how you basically grow your audience. I mean, everyone has different tastes. I guess the very best way to
yeah,
say it, but everyone can find a piece of something they like in the story that they're reading, especially if it's not something they typically read or watch.
yeah.
And like for me, I didn't excuse me, like I didn't get into romance novels at all, but or like even romance movies. But I sat down to watch something because I never know if I won't know if I don't like it if I don't try it.
Right.
And so I was like, yeah, at first I thought they were like cliche and like predictable, but at the same time, I felt the heart and the message of it, if that makes sense. So that's what grabbed me into wanting to watch more of those because I can see the message that these writers and producers or editors are telling in the story that they're showing. And like even like with comedy, it took me like, and I was like, I'm a huge fan of Adam Sandler. I wasn't a fan of him for a while, but over time he actually became funny to me because I see the underlying message. He actually put, even it might seem stupid sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but I can still see the underlining subplot line where he putting his. I was like, oh, that's what that means. I was like, okay, okay, this guy's actually pretty cool. This guy's pretty cool. And so like even I ran in and watched Hallmark because my family loved Hallmark, and it was
Mm-hmm.
like so yeah, I understand that completely, and I try to like apply that to my stories,
And I
like
will
just like
say,
uh,
with because going back to the question you asked me with the Christmas stories,
mhm,
I will say I do focus a little bit more on what I think the audience wants on those. Romance are a little bit more tricky. With fantasy, I want it to be more original and more coming from me. With
yeah,
holiday romance, I kind of stick to more of what the audience is expecting with the tropes and stuff. So I
mm,
will say there is a difference between the two in answering that.
yeah, and like with me with horror, I know a lot of people like horror is like done everything basically, and I've always been said, I always been told like you have to follow like certain horror rules, and it's like I want to break those rules. I want to bring something different to it. I'm like I want to expand the limit, but not do too much, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And like something like people like in horror you expect someone to have tripped over an invisible stick or in like especially movies and stuff. I'm like I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do like random jump scares because I'm more of a story person that goes with the action gore of the story. So I want you to feel the intensity while you're reading the story, while you're reading the book, to let you know something's about to happen before it happens. So
Yep.
that's how I try to grab people. It's like I want you to feel it, and I'm not, and I'm one of my the biggest advice my mother gave me as a writer says don't directly tell your audience what's happening. You have to indirectly show them what's happening, but you have to prepare them without telling them.
Yep.
It took me a long time to understand what the heck she said. That meant
Yeah.
until she read what I wrote and she gave me feedback and broke it down to me. I was like, Oh, she's like, don't like for example, don't say the boy is playing basketball with his friends. Do something like the boy is, I don't know, outside having fun with friends or something like. I forget how she broke it down, but you know what I mean. But you have
Yeah.
to indirectly show it, and so, and for upcoming writers and like creatives, what like your best advice you could give them when they're getting into this industry, like either writing books, comics, or just writing in general?
Be patient,
Oof,
and
that's a
don't
big one.
expect overnight success.
Oh, that's
I've
a big one. Yes.
I've been doing this since I think I published Mystic for the first time in 2017, and then I kind of republished a few years later with Jumpmaster Press. But I have been doing this for a long time, and there's no formula. There's no special. It doesn't mean you failed if it doesn't take off. It's all about just being patient. And actually, my publisher recently posted something on his Facebook that said if you actually look at traditional publishing and the statistics that come from traditional publishing and how many, unless you're one of their mainstream that they push, most of their traditional authors don't sell that much more than we do with small publishing or on our own. When he actually broke down those percentages, I was kind of surprised
Mhm.
because it's not what you think. You just got to be patient. You got to keep working at it and just know it's not going to be overnight success. And here's the lesson that I've had, other friends learn that sometimes even if you do reach that success, like you hit that, high and, maybe for a year, 2 years, everything just seems to be going great, sales are great. It doesn't mean it stays that way. Even if
Yeah.
you're writing the same, even if you're keeping everything the exact same, times and people change.
It
And
does.
so it's really hard as an author to guarantee it. I once listened to Sherilyn Kenyon give a speech, and she broke down, what does it take for an author to actually be a full-time author? And, she was just, and she broke it down unless you've had so many years of sales, so many years of success, so much of a salary. Like, I mean, she had a whole spreadsheet on
Oh
what it
yeah.
took. And her point was it's the very few that actually reach to what you would consider a full-time safe job.
Yeah. Oh
It
yeah.
comes and goes. And and she shares her own story publicly of where she went from making hundreds of thousands to a period where she was hardly making anything, and then rebounded. And so that's kind of her point in all this, and kind of what, I'm saying is, you can't give up, you have to be patient, and you can't expect overnight success, a promise of continued success. Sometimes it's just about putting in the hard work, believing in yourself, believing you've got a good product, and, just hoping it finds the readers it's meant to find.
I love that. And to close out, first, thank you so much for coming on, spreading your wisdom about authorship and writing in general. But I want to ask one more question.
Yeah.
Um, this is a fun question, so we got through the word part. If you could sit down with a of yourself who was writing your first story, what would you tell her?
Um, Probably not to take things so seriously, but honestly, I think I'd almost take that question in reverse. I think if my old self could talk to myself now, she would be like, stop worrying about rules, stop worrying about who's going to read it, stop worrying about how such and such reader might interpret. Just
Mm,
write the story that you love to write. That has been a hard lesson for me. The
mm,
more and more books you write, the more and more you try to make it fit the right mold the first time you do it, or you're thinking as you write it, well, this should really go that way instead of just stay in
mm,
the story because the story that's in your mind. So I think I could probably take more advice from my younger self in just telling the story and love the story you tell. And don't
beautiful.
worry about anyone else. It is the story that is happening in your imagination that you love, and just let it be. That
Mm,
has been something I've struggled with in my last few years, is
mm,
trying to stay focused on just telling the story in my head and not worrying about the expectations surrounding it. Um, that's the one downside I would say. The more books you write, the more you try to stay in that and knowing, oh, well, my editor's going to get me for that. Let me go ahead and think about it now, and instead of it free flowing. Um,
Hmm.
that's probably the one thing I miss because now it's like you can't unlearn what you've learned.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Oh yeah. I understand completely.
really,
Yes.
I really miss that where I would
Mm.
just write and I would just see the world in my head and I would just spill it out onto the page and not worry about, if I start a sentence with ing or not. Um, just that's that's something that I would probably in reverse tell. And then as for my younger self, just say basically what I said. Don't expect success overnight. You're not suddenly going to become a millionaire. You're just
Mhm.
going to have patience and just make sure you love telling the story.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's one of my, what I've always learned. It says, tell your story from your heart.
Yep.
And it's like explore your imagination, tell the story what you want to tell. And I was like, that's always been my motto. I'm just like, don't worry about what people will say. I mean, people are always gonna have an opinion, but it's at the end of the day, you have the control of your story.
Yep.
And
And
I'm
not
like,
everyone is going to like what
and
you
not
write.
everyone's gonna like it. That's why I'm just like, I don't go by what audience want. I'm just like,
Yep.
because this is my real house. This is my imagination.
Yep.
I was like, I love the theories they can bring up. Like, I would accept the theories, but you're not gonna tell me what I want to write. You know what I mean? But
Yep.
and to, also, where can we follow you on social media and everything? Keep up to date with your projects.
On Instagram and Facebook, it's JL Lawrence Author. And so, usually on those two platforms is where I post most of my updates. As I mentioned earlier, I'm in the process of moving my website to a new base.
Mhm.
So, as soon as that is back up and running, that is authorjllawrence.com.
And
And
you,
hopefully, I'll have that back on track in the next couple of weeks.
all right. And you can follow me on Instagram at I am Kevin Davis Official and Facebook at I am Kevin Davis CEO. And thank you so much for coming on. And you're more than welcome to come back, especially when you bring your other series out, because I'm going to buy every single last one of them when I get a chance. But guys, the link to her Instagram and everything's in the description of this video while you're watching. But thank you so much for coming on,
Yeah.
and you can and also you can find me here at the Madness Network on my Kevirsyle Network podcast. And check out my website at kevirsyle.com. I'm also transitioning my website too, so right now it's on like my apparel side of things, but to my official company website is in process. But I'll catch you guys next time and see you around.
All right. Thank you.